Charles Spencer Chaplin was born on April 16, 1889, in Walworth, London, into a family of music hall performers. His father, Charles Chaplin Sr., was a popular comedic actor, and his mother, Hannah Chaplin, was a talented singer and actress. But behind the theatrical glamour lay a dark reality. When Charlie was just 1 year old, his parents divorced due to his father's severe alcoholism. Hannah was left to raise Charlie and his older half-brother, Sidney Chaplin, all alone. The family plunged into extreme poverty. The workhouse and orphanage. In 1896, disaster struck. Hannah lost her singing voice suddenly and could no longer work. With no money and no food, Charlie and Sidney were sent to the Lambeth workhouse, a brutal Victorian poorhouse. Weeks later, they were moved to a school for orphans. Then came an even crueler blow. When Charlie was just 12 years old, his father died of alcoholism at only 37. Shortly after, his mother's mental health completely collapsed. She was diagnosed with psychosis and committed to an insane asylum. Within a few years, Charlie had lost both parents. He was officially an orphan. A childhood of survival. For 7 years, Charlie survived the streets of London. He worked as a newspaper boy, a grocer's assistant, a toy seller, a doctor's servant, a glassblower, and even swept floors at a fairground. He later described this period as his Dickensian London childhood. A living nightmare. His first stage appearance. The Twist of Fate. In 1894, at just 5 years old, Charlie made his first ever stage appearance. His mother's voice had cracked mid-performance, and the stage manager pushed little Charlie out to sing in her place. The crowd went wild. That night, the stage lights changed his life forever. In 1903, he landed his first official acting role as a newsboy in a play called Sherlock Holmes. In 1908, he joined the prestigious Fred Carnot pantomime troupe, beginning his professional career. Chapter 2. Conquering America and the Birth of the Tramp, 1908 to 1919. Sailing to the New World. In 1912, Chaplin traveled to the United States on tour with the Carnot troupe. He arrived in America on October 2, 1912. During this tour, he shared a room with another struggling young comedian, Stan Laurel, who would later become half of the legendary duo Laurel and Hardy. Discovered by a film studio. In 1913, during the American tour, Chaplin was spotted by Max Sennett, the head of Keystone Film Company. Sennett hired him on the spot. Chaplin's film career had begun. The debut and the birth of the Tramp. In 1914, Chaplin starred in his first film, Making a Living. It was a modest start. But later that same year, he made a film called Kid Auto Races at Venice. In that short film, he improvised a costume that would change cinema forever. A tight bowler hat, a tiny mustache, a too small coat, oversized baggy pants, enormous shoes, and a bamboo cane. The Tramp was born. This character, clumsy yet dignified, poor yet a gentleman, sad yet always hopeful, instantly made Chaplin a global superstar. He was the most famous man on earth. Building his own empire. By 1915, Chaplin was writing, directing, and acting in his own films. He released classics like The Immigrant, A Dog's Life, and Shoulder Arms. In 1918, he started his own film studio. In 1919, he co-founded United Artists with Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith. He now had total creative and financial control over his work. Chapter 3. The Silent Era Masterpieces, 1919 to 1940. Timeless Classics. In 1925, Chaplin released The Gold Rush, now regarded as one of the greatest comedies of the silent era. In 1928, he won his first Academy Award, a special Oscar, for The Circus. In 1931, while the entire film industry was rushing to make talkies, Chaplin stubbornly released City Lights, a silent film about a tramp in love with a blind flower girl. It is widely considered his masterpiece. The final scene, where she realizes he is her benefactor, still breaks hearts today. In 1936, he released Modern Times, a brilliant satire of industrialization and the dehumanizing effects of factory work. The iconic scene of Chaplin being swallowed by giant gears remains one of the most famous images in film history. His first talkie, The Great Dictator, 1940. In 1940, Chaplin finally made his first full-sound film, The Great Dictator. It was a bold, risky move. In the film he played two roles, a Jewish barber and a dictator named Adenoid Hinkle, a direct parody of Adolf Hitler. The film's final speech, a heartfelt 6-minute plea for humanity, freedom and peace, is considered one of the greatest speeches ever captured on film. It cemented Chaplin as not just an artist, but a fearless political voice. Chapter 4. Love, Marriage and Finding His Soulmate, 1918 to 1943. A complicated romantic history. Chaplin had a famously complicated love life. He married multiple times and faced numerous scandals. But everything changed with his final marriage. Una O'Neill. The Redemption. On June 16, 1943, at the age of 54, Charlie Chaplin married 18-year-old Una O'Neill. Una was the daughter of Eugene O'Neill, the Nobel Prize-winning American playwright. The wedding caused an enormous scandal. Una's father was so furious that he never spoke to his daughter again. The press mocked the couple, predicting the marriage would fail within months. But they were all wrong. This marriage lasted 34 years, until Chaplin's death. Una and Charlie had 8 children together. 3 sons, Christopher, Eugene and Michael, and 5 daughters, Geraldine, Josephine, Jane, Victoria and Annette Emily. Una gave Chaplin something he had never had: stability and peace. She healed his wounds, calmed his restless spirit, and transformed him from a playboy into a devoted family man. Chapter 5. Exile, Honor and the Final Years, 1952 to 1977. Banned from America. In 1952, Chaplin traveled to London for the premiere of his film Limelight. While he was overseas, the U.S. government, under suspicion that he was a communist sympathizer, revoked his re-entry visa. Chaplin was banned from the United States. He was in exile. The man who had built Hollywood's golden age was no longer allowed to step foot on American soil. Settling in Switzerland. Banned from America, Chaplin and Una settled permanently in the small Swiss village of Courtrai, on the shores of Lake Geneva. Before leaving the U.S., Una cleverly converted all of Chaplin's money into cash, sewed it into the lining of his coat, and smuggled it past customs. She then renounced her American citizenship to stay by his side. In Switzerland, Chaplin continued to work. In 1967, he directed his final film, A Countess from Hong Kong. The Belated Apology. Hollywood honors him. In 1972, Hollywood finally apologized. Chaplin received an honorary Academy Award for his incalculable effect on making motion pictures the art form of the century. When the frail 83-year-old Chaplin walked onto the stage with his cane, the audience gave him a 12-minute standing ovation, the longest in Oscar history. He was crying. In 1975, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him. The poor orphan from the London workhouse was now Sir Charles Chaplin. Life could not have written a better script. The final chapter. A Peaceful Goodbye, December 25, 1977. On Christmas morning, December 25, 1977, at the age of 88, Charlie Chaplin passed away peacefully in his sleep at his home in Switzerland. His funeral was a small, private Anglican ceremony, exactly as he had wished. Legacy. Charlie Chaplin's life spanned over 75 years of performance. He traveled from the darkest slums of London to the pinnacle of Hollywood royalty. He gave the world a little tramp in a bowler hat who made us laugh, but also made us cry, and more importantly made us think. This is one of the wildest stories in Hollywood history. On March 1, 1978, just 3 months after Chaplin's death, 2 unemployed mechanics dug up his grave in Switzerland and stole his body. They demanded a ransom of $600,000 from his widow, Una. She refused to pay and told them to keep it. The police caught the criminals 11 weeks later, and Chaplin's body was reburied under 6 feet of concrete to prevent it from ever happening again. 2. He had a photographic memory. Chaplin never learned to read music, but he could hear a song once and play it perfectly on the violin or piano. He composed all the music for his films himself, despite having zero formal musical training. 3. The FBI had a 2,000-page file on him. J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, was obsessed with Chaplin. The agency kept a massive file on him, spying on him for over 20 years. Hoover tried desperately to find proof that Chaplin was a communist or had committed treason, but he never found anything concrete. This is why Chaplin was ultimately banned from the US in 1952. 4. He never had a driver's license. Despite playing a clumsy tramp who famously got into trouble with cars, Chaplin never actually learned to drive. He relied on chauffeurs, taxis, and walking for his entire life. Even on movie sets, his car was always pushed or towed. 5. He refused to speak for 17 years. After the invention of talkies, sound films, in 1927, Hollywood forced everyone to make sound films. Chaplin refused. He released City Lights, 1931, and Modern Times, 1936, as silent films, long after the industry had moved on. He said, "Dialogue is not comedy. The body is comedy." He only gave in with The Great Dictator in 1940. 17 years later. Performing Arts Section B. The story behind The Great Dictator speech. This deserves a special moment in your video. During the filming of the final speech in The Great Dictator, Chaplin did something crazy. He improvised the entire 6-minute speech on the spot. There was no script. He stood in front of the camera, looked into the lens, and spoke directly to the world from his heart. He was so moved by his own words that he broke down crying after the first take. The speech includes the famous lines, "I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone, if possible, Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that." For your video, this is a perfect emotional climax. Play a short clip of this speech, audio only if copyright is an issue, and you will get goosebumps from your audience. Red Heart Section C. Chaplin and his children, family details. People love family stories. Chaplin had 11 children in total from his various relationships, but his marriage to Una produced 8 of them. Here is a quick breakdown. Child name. Born. Details. Geraldine Chaplin. 1944. Became a famous actress. Starred in Dr. Zhivago. Michael Chaplin. 1946. Actor and producer. Josephine Chaplin. 1949. Actress. Passed away in 2023. Victoria Chaplin. 1951. Actress and circus performer. Eugene Chaplin. 1953. Sound engineer and documentary filmmaker. Jane Chaplin. 1957. Actress. Annette Emily Chaplin. 1959. Actress and manager of Chaplin's estate. Christopher Chaplin. 1962. Musician and actor. Fun fact to add, Geraldine Chaplin, his eldest daughter with Una, is still alive today and often gives interviews about how kind and loving her father was behind closed doors, completely different from the troubled man the press wrote about. Scroll Section D. The Exile. Why America really banned him. A lot of videos gloss over this. Here is the real reason he was banned, told in dramatic detail. It wasn't just communism. It was revenge. Chaplin had made enemies in Washington because he refused to join the pro-war propaganda efforts during World War II. He thought all war was stupid. He publicly supported a second front to help the Soviet Union fight the Nazis, which made him look like a Russian ally. He had an extramarital affair with a young actress named Joan Barry. She sued him for paternity. He won, and blood tests proved he was not the father, but the trial made him look like a moral degenerate in the eyes of conservative America. When he left for London in 1952, the Attorney General sent a telegram to the Immigration Office. Revoke his re-entry permit. Chaplin learned about his banishment while standing on a ship, reading the newspaper. He famously said, "I have been the subject of the most vicious propaganda. I am not a communist. I am a lover of mankind." Joseph Frank Keaton was born on October 4, 1895, in Piqua, Kansas, into a family of traveling vaudeville performers. His father, Joe Keaton, and mother, Myra Keaton, worked a wild physical comedy act called The Two Keatons. But here is where the story gets absolutely insane, and it explains everything about Buster's future. The Buster nickname. When Buster was just 6 months old, he fell down a long flight of stairs. His father rushed down, picked him up, and found the baby completely unharmed. Not a single bruise. The famous magician Harry Houdini, who was traveling with the troupe, picked up the baby and said, "That's a real Buster." Slang for a tough, resilient kid. The name stuck. Buster Keaton was born, a child acrobat in hell. By the age of 3, Buster was a full member of his parents' act. But it was a brutal, abusive routine. His father would literally throw him across the stage, by the scruff of his neck, by his clothes, sometimes by his ears. He would hurl Buster into the scenery, into the orchestra pit, and against the walls. The audience would gasp, but Buster would always pop right back up with a completely blank, emotionless face. No crying, no smiling, just pure stoicism. This was the birth of his legendary stone face persona. A terrible childhood. Buster later admitted he was terrified of his father, who was a violent alcoholic. By the age of 8, Buster was performing dangerous stunts that would make modern stuntmen faint. His father once threw him so hard that he flew into the audience, breaking a spectator's leg. Despite the abuse, Buster never cried on stage. He learned early that showing no emotion was his greatest weapon. The audience loved the little boy who could take any beating with a straight face. Chapter 2. The Rise of a Silent Genius, 1910 to 1920. Leaving the Family Act. In 1910, Buster's father's drinking spiraled out of control. Myra finally divorced him, and Buster and his mother moved to New York City. Buster, now a teenager, had to support his mother by performing solo. Discovery by Fatty Arbuckle. In 1917, while performing a solo act in New York, Buster was spotted by Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, the biggest comedy star of the era. Arbuckle was blown away. He hired Buster immediately to work in his films at the Keystone Studio. The evolution of a style. Buster quickly realized he was different from Chaplin. Chaplin made you laugh by being clumsy and vulnerable. Buster made you laugh by being completely unflappable. He used his athletic body like a machine. He could do backflips, jump from rooftop to rooftop, and ride a motorcycle while reading a book, all with that deadpan, expressionless face. He never smiled on camera. Ever. Chapter 3. The Greatest Decade. The 1920s, 1920 to 1929. This was Buster Keaton's golden era. He began writing, directing, and starring in his own features. Many film historians argue that this decade produced some of the greatest comedies ever made. Masterpiece number 1. The General, 1926. This film is widely considered one of the greatest films ever made, silent or sound. Set during the American Civil War, Buster plays a train engineer who single-handedly tries to recover his stolen locomotive. The film cost an astronomical $750,000 to make, and featured a scene where he crashed a real train off a burning bridge. The stunt cost $42,000, a fortune in 1926, and is still considered one of the most expensive and dangerous stunts in cinema history. Masterpiece number 2. Sherlock Jr., 1924. In this film, Buster plays a projectionist who dreams he enters the movie screen. The stunts are mind-bending. He jumps from a moving train, rides a handlebar-less motorcycle while steering with his feet, and falls through the roof of a house, all without any wires or CGI. Masterpiece number 3. Steamboat Bill Jr., 1928. This film features Buster's most famous stunt of all time. A 2-ton wall falls forward, and Buster stands exactly where the tiny open window is. The wall crashes down around him, missing his body by inches. It is one of the most terrifying, brilliant stunts ever captured on film. He did it in one take. If he had moved even slightly, he would have been crushed to death. The peak of power. By 1928, Buster was earning $3,000 a day, equivalent to about $150,000 today. He owned his own studio, had complete artistic control, and was considered Chaplin's only equal. He was the king of Hollywood. Chapter 4. The Terrible Fall. How Hollywood Destroyed Him, 1929 to 1940. The Arrival of Sound. In 1927, the jazz singer arrived. Hollywood went crazy for talkies. Everyone wanted dialogue. Chaplin fought the trend and survived. But Buster made the fatal mistake. He signed a terrible contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer (MGM). MGM was a factory studio. They took away his creative control. They assigned him writers who didn't understand his physical comedy. They forced him to do scripted dialogue scenes, which completely killed his style. He was no longer Buster Keaton. He was just another actor reading lines. The breaking point. MGM also forced Buster into an unhappy marriage with Natalie Talmadge. She was cold and controlling. They had 2 sons, but the marriage was miserable. In 1932, Natalie divorced Buster and took everything, including his mansion, his studio, and his cars. She even drained his bank accounts. Buster was broke. He had nothing. The dark years. Alcoholism. By 1933, Buster had lost his studio, his money, his marriage, and his career. He became a full-blown alcoholic. His hands shook so badly he couldn't perform stunts anymore. MGM fired him. The man who had once been the most brilliant filmmaker in Hollywood was now blacklisted and forgotten. He was reduced to making terrible low-budget B-movies in Mexico and France, just to pay for his alcohol. Chapter 5. The Slow Redemption, 1940 to 1966. Marriage to Eleanor Norris. The turning point. In 1940, Buster was at his absolute lowest. But then he met Eleanor Norris, a young dancer. She was 21 years old. He was 44. She fell in love with him despite his alcoholism. She gave him an ultimatum. It's me or the bottle. Buster quit drinking cold turkey that day. He never touched alcohol again for the rest of his life. Eleanor saved his life. They married and stayed together until his death. A second life in television. In the 1950s, a strange thing happened. A new generation discovered Buster Keaton's old silent films on television. They were mesmerized. Hollywood realized they had ignored a genius. Buster started getting work again. Not in features but in television commercials and guest appearances. He appeared on The Twilight Zone on Candid Camera, and in dozens of TV shows. He also wrote and directed Coca-Cola commercials. He was finally working again and he was sober. Chapter 6. The Final Triumph. Apology from the World. 1960 to 1966. The Cannes Film Festival. In 1960, Buster was invited to the Cannes Film Festival in France. He walked onto the stage, and the audience gave him a 15-minute standing ovation, one of the longest in the festival's history. He broke down crying on stage. The world had finally remembered him. The Oscars, a lifetime achievement. In 1964, Buster Keaton received an honorary Academy Award for his unique talents. He walked to the podium, his face still emotionless, but his eyes were wet. He said simply, "Thank you." He later joked privately, "I finally got an Oscar for all those broken bones." The final chapter. A Peaceful Goodbye, 1966. On February 1, 1966, at the age of 70, Buster Keaton passed away peacefully in his home in Woodland Hills, California, from lung cancer. His wife Eleanor was by his side. He had been smoking heavily his entire life, but his last words to Eleanor were, "I love you." Legacy. The forgotten genius who never smiled. Buster Keaton is now recognized as one of the 3 greatest comedians in cinematic history, alongside Charlie Chaplin and Harold Lloyd. But here is what makes him special. He did every stunt himself. No body doubles, no CGI, no wires that he broke every bone in his body. His injuries list is legendary. Broken fingers, broken legs, broken arms, a broken back, a broken neck. He didn't know it was broken for 20 years until a doctor x-rayed him. He never smiled on screen. But you knew exactly what he was feeling because his eyes told the entire story. He is the true stunt actor godfather. Every action star, from Jackie Chan to Tom Cruise, owes their career to Buster Keaton.